Use your God power. Get everything you ever wanted and live the life of your dreams. The Master's Course. Copyright 2010 by Richard Lee McKim Jr. All rights reserved. Let the quest for knowing begin. Chapter 8. What is reality? Take a moment and really think about this, because this chapter is going to blow your mind. How can you tell what is reality and what is not? Where does reality come from? Does it come from the universe? Do you think that there are alternate universes? If so, do the other universes have the same reality? Or do you think that their reality would be different? If the other universe had a different reality, then does that mean that each universe has a certain reality of its own? How do you know what the parameters of reality are? In other words, what are the rules as to what is real and what is not? Does it have to be something that you can see to be real? Let's try to create a working definition of exactly what reality is so that we can have some common ground together, a starting place to work with. I think that the easiest way to define and experience reality is from a personal viewpoint. While there are many aspects of reality that go far beyond what we can experience with our five senses, and even can be described by physics, let's call reality that which someone can experience. That makes it very simple. If someone can experience it, it's reality. Sound reasonable? If you can experience it, that makes it real, and real equals reality, does it not? So if you jump up into the air and you come right back down to the ground, that means that gravity is reality. If you put your bare feet on red-hot metal and they get third-degree burns, that is reality. If you get shot with a bullet, it would penetrate your body and kill you, and that would be reality. If you stuck your fingers in the flame of a burning candle for 10 minutes, they would be more than burnt, they would be cooked. If you stopped eating food and drinking water for an extended period of time, you would die of dehydration and starvation. Some of these situations you may have already experienced, while others you don't want to experience, but still you know them to be true. That is reality, because it is your experience and your knowing. Fair enough? This is actually the correct way to look at reality, as a combination of personal experience and personal knowing. As much as people talk about reality, it is really hard to pin down. Most people subscribe to the idea that there is one overall single reality that covers the entire universe and is always consistent in every way, everywhere. This, as it turns out, is not correct. The actual situation is going to sound unreal, but it is a fact. There is no single reality that covers the universe. In fact, there are as many different realities as there are perceivers of reality. Realities are as individual as fingerprints. Most of our realities are so similar that we don't even notice that there are differences at all. However, we do not share realities with others. We all have very individual and personal realities which may or may not have similarities with others. Just because we both look at the same car and both recognize that it is the color red doesn't indicate a shared reality. If there are similarities, it is not because our realities are shared. It is because we have similar beliefs and meanings which are creating similar realities. Later on in this book, you will see a video example where a woman thinks that her car has now been painted black. This proves that just because we all see the same thing, we still have our own individual reality, even though it seems shared. But when you know how realities work and how they are created, you will recognize the differences easily. If you were to look at two persons' fingertips from 12 inches away, they would seem like they are identical. It is only under a magnifying glass that the differences become apparent. In fact, it wasn't that long ago that we discovered that fingerprints were actually different for each person. So different that they could be used as identification. It took 1900 years after Christ to discover something as simple as our fingerprints were different, and in fact, individually unique. Now we know that our realities are actually different. It has only taken another 110 years since the discovery of our unique fingerprints to discover our individually unique realities. In the same way that the uniqueness of different fingerprints were discovered while looking more closely using a magnifying glass, we will discover together that our individual realities are as different as our fingerprints by a closer examination of the facts. Like fingerprints, the differences have always lay there before our eyes undiscovered. And like the discovery of the individual fingerprints, the discovery that we have individual realities will be revolutionary. Realities are a matter of perception. Since it is an individual assessment, it will be important to better understand consciousness and how it works before we get into the differences in realities. People with a higher consciousness are better able to recognize the different realities and can more effectively use their God power. What is a higher consciousness? People are always talking about higher consciousness, and yet, what are they talking about? What does this mean in terms of your reality? Higher consciousness is a different state of mind that changes your awareness of your situation. Your level of consciousness relates directly to what level of reality you can and will experience. At the higher levels of consciousness, you have a greater and more powerful reality, while at the lower levels of consciousness, you have a smaller and more limited reality. To understand this better, let's look at the different levels of matter. At the normal level, we have rocks, water, metal objects, etc. However, at a higher level of understanding, we have molecules, which are specific groups of atoms that make up substance, which is then formed into that object. Then, at an even higher level of understanding, we have atoms, which are the building blocks of molecules. Then, at an even higher level of understanding, we have electrons, protons, and neutrons, which are the building blocks of atoms. If you have noticed, the higher the level we achieved, the more basic and uniform the understanding. That is to say that at the level of the object, it was the only one of its kind. However, as we reached the molecule level, we were now at a level of understanding that covered every object in the universe that was made of the same material. When we reached the individual atom level, we now reach common ground with every kind of material that had that atom in it, be it metal, water, or whatever. However, at the highest level, for our purposes, we had protons, electrons, and neutrons, the most basic building blocks of all matter everywhere. Everything has these elements no matter what it is. We are even made of these elements. So, moving up the level of understanding of matter could be like having a higher consciousness. That is to say, our conscious awareness is perceiving matter at a higher level and at a greater understanding. Any thoughts or work we do to this matter at the level of the atom is not only very powerful, but it also applies to much more of creation. The same is true of our consciousness, except our higher levels of consciousness is not just an exercise in understanding, but it also affords us a higher level of communication and creation ability.
To continue, go to How to Use Your God Power, Chapter number 8, Segment number 2. Let your quest for knowing continue.